This is a glute biased squat with the dumbbells. This exercise biases the glute max, the largest muscle of the glutes, specifically in the lengthened or stretched position. We have two options for setup on these. First of all is holding the dumbbells high on our shoulders. In order to do this setup, we are going to clean the dumbbells up. So use that momentum, drive the hips back, and get the dumbbells up on the shoulders. And then we are going into our glute biased squat. Now, the obvious limitation here is that as you get stronger, as you are using heavier and heavier weights, it gets tougher and tougher to, one, get the weights up onto your shoulders, and two, to hold them in place and keep the glutes the limiting factor and not the arms. Option number two for setup is going to be holding the dumbbells with a straight arm. This is going to be easier setup for sure. It's definitely better for heavier weights and as you get stronger. It is going to pull your chest a bit more forward to have the dumbbells down like this, but this really works just fine with a glute-focused squat because, as we're going to talk about in a second, the chest will naturally lean a little more forward anyways. For glute-focused squats, we're going to be setting the feet hip width apart, with toes angled straight forward. This exercise is a backward and forward motion with the hips. So our primary focus here is hip flexion, hip bending. We're going to finish at about a 90-degree angle with the knees so that we are really emphasizing glute stretch, but we're minimizing the amount of quad stretch that we're getting. When the hips are more back like this, out of necessity, the chest needs to lean a little bit more forward in order to counterbalance the hips. This is just fine. We don't want to fold in half, but it is okay if the chest comes more forward in order to get the hips back and to end our squat in that nice 90-degree angle. Now let's go over some common mistakes and how to fix them, starting with popping the butt out and squatting with an anterior pelvic tilt. We do want to initiate with the hips, but we want to avoid detaching the butt from the hips and sticking it out. In fact, if you're prone to anterior pelvic tilt already, you may even find it helpful to think of tilting your hips forward slightly at the top of the movement and keeping the hips in that position throughout the movement. Another common mistake is tucking the butt under in a butt wink at the bottom. Now, essentially, this does not do anything extra for the glutes and can be really uncomfortable and even compromising for the lower back. So we want to end with that nice neutral spine. We don't want to tuck the butt under. Eyes up is an outdated and incorrect cue for squats, especially for glute-focused squats. So instead of looking up and letting your chin pop out as you squat, instead we want to think of the head and the eyes being a continuation of the spine and allowing them to follow the rest of your body. If you imagine a spotlight coming out of your eyes is going to move as you squat. So it's going to start straight out in front and angle down as you squat rather than staying high as you squat. Lastly, there is absolutely no reason to hip thrust the air at the top of your squat. There's no tension up there, and this can be really rough on your low back if you hyperextend under load. So instead, we want to think of just standing up from the bottom of our squat and ending with a nice neutral spine.